I probably get more questions about whether workers' compensation covers stress than almost any other kind of injury. It does. The law allows for emotional injuries. However, they make it extremely difficult. They make it really hard. I'll give you an example. You know, you're in an altercation, there's an altercation with students, you go to break it up, student turns and attacks you, you have physical injuries, and you develop psychological condition as a result. That is different. That is treated differently under the law than someone who has a purely psychological injury. For psychological injuries, we have to be able to show that your injury was caused by abnormal working conditions. And abnormal working conditions is a very high standard. It is as high as you can get. In general, what the courts look at is your work environment. For instance, the kinds of things that happen in a workplace at a trucking depot may be very different from what happens in a school, which may be very different than what happens in an office. And the courts look to the specific circumstance of your workplace to define what is normal conditions of your workplace. So probably the most frequent question I get is about a supervisor who's harassing someone, writing them up, being demeaning to them, yelling at them in front of other people, giving them a hard time. You know, essentially, you know, I think we all either have had bosses like that or we've seen bosses like that. And workers' compensation specifically does not cover that. Does not cover what I think of as, you know, the nasty boss. We have to show that the circumstances that you're exposed to are so egregious as to be outrageous. Like, they really need to be outrageous. And another circumstance that people often will talk to me about is, you know, with the financial difficulties of the last couple of years, layoffs, people have taken on more work. Now I have to do a job that I didn't used to have to do, and I don't really know how to do it, and they're writing me up because I'm not doing it right. I'm doing the best I can, and it's causing me all this stress. Not going to be covered. Having too much work, having a change in circumstance, the courts have said that happens in workplaces, and that is typical for a workplace, and so it's not going to meet that standard of abnormal working condition. So I use an example of a liquor store clerk here in the city of Philadelphia, was held at gunpoint during a robbery while her manager was also held at gunpoint while he opened up the safe. Another employee was pistol whipped during this robbery. The woman developed some stress, some anxiety over the situation, was out of work for a relatively short period of time, got some treatment and went back to work. The court said that it is not abnormal for a liquor store clerk to be held at gunpoint. Her claim was denied. Claim was denied. Another example, there was a police officer in Scranton who was held, there was a bank robbery. He responded to the bank robbery, wound up being taken hostage, was held at gunpoint, sitting under a table for 8 hours. Not an abnormal working condition. So when people call me, I try to explain to them, first of all, I'm very sympathetic. I understand workplaces can be tough. I understand with, you know, changes in administration, things can be difficult, and so supervisors can be really difficult. And to me, it's not an indication that the person isn't suffering stress. It's, can I get them covered by workers' compensation? So I'm sympathetic to the stress issue, and I believe in it. But I probably can't get it covered under workers' compensation because I have to say, is this situation the equivalent of a liquor store clerk being held at gunpoint during a robbery? Because if it's not worse than that, I'm not going to be able to get it covered.